I needed help. I needed help. I didn't just want someone to help me. I needed it. But it did get to the point where I realized I can't do this by myself anymore. I can't. It's too much. I have to figure something out. Hey everyone, it's Lindey. Welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to talk to you guys briefly about how to scale up your online selling business and when you might be ready to hire someone to help you. I get a lot of questions on my YouTube channel surrounding how I managed to do everything. Do I have anybody helping me out? If I do have somebody helping me out, what exactly are they doing? Might I be in the situation where I might need some help? If so, how exactly do I go about doing that? What do I pay someone? How do I find them? What do I have them do for me? There's a lot of questions surrounding the idea of having someone help you with your business so that you can scale it up, make more money, and take a lot of pressure off of you. And so that's what I wanted to talk about today. I wanted to dabble in all of these questions, give you some answers that I have, and talk about my own personal experiences, and even tell you guys some stories of some obstacles that I had when it came to scaling up my business, hiring someone, and how exactly I managed to get over any hurdles and how exactly my business is functioning today in this moment. Resellers have lots of different reasons why we resell, but one thing that we all have in common is that we do it for money. Because even if you're not a registered business, even if you're a sole proprietor, you are doing this to make money, which means that you should consider yourself a business even if you don't have an official business license. Because we don't work for free. At least I don't like to work for free. But there might come an opportunity where maybe you need to make more money, which means you need to scale up your business, or you might be wanting to hire someone to help you out because we all only have so many hours that we can work. Some are more than others. If you have a full-time job, you might be trying to squeeze in a small amount of reselling on the side, and you're going to get tapped out with your time versus someone who might be reselling full-time and you have so many hours that you can work, but then you might reach a ceiling where you can't possibly work anymore, but you still need to make more money. And that's where scaling and hiring help comes into play. So there's two different kinds of scaling up your business to make more money. The first one that I want to talk about has nothing to do with hiring people. So if you are just looking to scale up your reselling business and you have no intention to hire anybody else and you just want to know how you can potentially scale up without hiring help, this part of the video is for you. The example that I'm going to give you for this portion of the video comes from my own personal experience when I switched from selling clothing to selling health and beauty aids on eBay. With clothing, I very quickly noticed that I was reaching a cap on my time because of how long the listings took to create and the value of the items that I was able to find in the clothing category for resale. So what was happening to me when I was selling mostly jeans is I was finding that there was, an average profit that really couldn't go more than say $7 or $8. That was the most profit on average that I was able to get. And it just had to do with the region that I lived, the kind of clothing that I could source. And if you live in a different region, your average profit for clothing might be better or worse, depending on where we live. It has to do with our general vicinity and what kind of merchandise we're able to source. And if you list and sell clothing, you know how involved it is. You have to, iron or wash things if they need washed. You have to press them. You have to dress a mannequin. You have to hang them against a white backdrop. You have to take multiple photos. And a lot of the times when you're selling clothing, it's unique items, especially if they're used. You only have one of them. So you have to list it and sell it. And when it's sold, you have to list an item again, which means that you will eventually reach a ceiling for how many listings you can do in a week, even if you put all of your spare time into it. And that's exactly what happened with me. I only had so many hours a week that I could spend listing on eBay. And there was only so many listings that I could get up every single week during those times. So here's an example of what I mean when I say income was capped based on the amount of listings that I could create. So let's just say average profit is $8 per item. I was able to get up 100 listings a week by myself, and my sell-through rate was 25%. that basically means that on average, I was only making $200 a week in profit doing it by myself. And then what happens if you need more than $200 a week, but your time is capped out? You have to scale up. And with the kind of merchandise that I was selling, the only way that I could have possibly scaled up was hiring someone to help me, because having a second person helping me list meant that I could get up more listings every single week because my time was tapped out. So adding another person automatically gives me more time. And so that's exactly what I did when I was selling clothing. I did hire someone to help, and I will tell you how exactly I hired them, what I paid them, what exactly they did for me later in the video. But I want to first talk about how to scale up your business in that kind of situation if you don't want to hire someone. And so this is what I ended up doing later on. Now, after having someone helping me list for about 1.5 years, the conclusion that I ended up coming to was switching categories completely that I have talked about. I have an entire video talking about why I switched from clothing to health and beauty. I will link that down in the video description, also pin it to the top pinned comment of the comment section. It is an older video, but I go over exactly why I decided to dramatically change categories. So I had someone helping me list clothing for about 1.5 years. And basically, in a nutshell, what ended up happening was they had to start working less for me because they got a promotion at their other job. And I really wasn't enjoying the profits that I was getting from selling clothing, having to pay someone to help me. So that's when I decided that if I was going to start doing it all by myself again, I needed to dramatically change the category that I was selling in so that I was able to scale up. And that's why I switched to health and beauty aids. Because the best way for you to scale up as an individual without hiring help is to sell items that have multiple quantities. Again, I do have an entire video where I go over in detail with like a dry erase board and all of that, talking about how to scale up your business and how to sell more without listing more. Again, that's another video I'll link for you if you missed it. But the gist of it is, if you are creating one listing, if you can sell multiples in the same listing, then that is a way that you can bring in more money without having to do more work. So that is, in my opinion, the best way to scale up your business without having to hire help. The only other way you'll be able to scale up your business by yourself is if you find more single items that bring you a bigger profit. That's going to be the only way that you can make more money with the same amount of time. But I chose to scale up by purchasing liquidation and wholesale merchandise that had multiple quantities so that I could create the listing once and have multiples to sell. I have to tell you, I love selling multiple quantities so much more than I ever liked selling individual items because of how much less work it is to sell more. I don't think I will ever go back to selling unique one-of-a-kind items. Multiple quantities is where it's at. And my favorite source of selling multiple quantity beauty items is actually sponsoring this video today. So huge shout out to Wholesale Ninjas for partnering with me and sponsoring my videos. A couple of years ago, I started getting into liquidation when I wanted to get out of clothing. I knew I needed to scale up my eBay store. I knew I needed multiple quantity items. I didn't know where to look, so I started doing basic Google searches for liquidation and wholesale, and I ended up stumbling upon the Wholesale Ninjas website. I knew that I wanted to sell health and beauty, and it was proving to be very, very difficult to find websites that had a regular supply of health and beauty because it's a very, very popular category. And a lot of the sites that I was finding, they were really hit and miss. They didn't have a consistent supply, but Wholesale Ninjas appeared as though from the outside that they really specialized in the health and beauty merchandise. And so I went onto their website, I looked around, I was really intrigued. I picked up the phone, I called them, asked them a bunch of questions about how consistent their supply is. They told me that HBA is something that they always have. Cosmetics, general merchandise, health and beauty, supplements, health. They had all of the categories regularly that I wanted to source. So I had purchased a bunch of test lots from them, and I loved what I got so much. I reached out to them again and I asked them if they could possibly give me a coupon code because I have a YouTube channel, and they were more than happy to accommodate, and I've been partnering with them ever since. And they are sponsoring today's video because they believe in me and they believe in helping all of you guys grow your businesses and help scale up. I do have a coupon code for them. The code is Lindey25 and it gets you $25 off of anything on their site. They are by far my favorite place to source merchandise. Not only do they have stuff that sells really well for me, but they also have lots of multiple quantities. So sometimes you might get something that only has one or two, but then there's other times you get case packed merchandise and you have multiples, and it just makes listing and selling so much faster and easier when things are in brand new condition. You have multiples of them. I will never source another way again. It's my absolute favorite, and I appreciate what Wholesale Ninjas does so much. Thank you guys again for sponsoring this video. Thank you so much for providing my viewers with a coupon code. It will be linked down in the video description, also pinned to the top pinned comment of the comment section. But now let's talk about what you probably came here for, and that is how to hire someone to help you. What should you pay them? What should they do for you? And are you ready to have someone help you scale up your business? If you are already reaching the point where you're maxed out on your time, do you need help? Let's talk about that right now. So you guys, I did eventually reach that point where I said, I cannot do this by myself anymore. And it wasn't just because I was reaching a cap of my time, like I can only do so much, right? It turned out to be more than just that. I was fighting burnout. And if you've been a reseller for more than a hot minute, you probably know exactly what burnout I'm talking about. You've reached the point where you just don't want to list anymore. It's just day after day, the same mundane thing. And it takes your passion away from wanting to list when you feel like you have to. It takes the enjoyment out of it. You start to resent your job. And if you're a reseller, you probably do this because you want to control your time. You want to make your own money. You want to be your own boss. You want to have your own business. And when it reaches the point where you're resenting your job, it's not fun anymore. You might as well go get a job where you punch in and punch out and you could just leave work at work, because when you work for yourself, it's always on. You're always switched on. You're always working. Your business is always in the back of your brain. And burnout is such a real thing when this happens. And that was the first indication of me that I needed help. I needed help. I didn't just want someone to help me. I needed it because my brain was burning out. I was starting to hate what I did. I was completely over it. So that was the first indicator to me that I might need help. But now this is my reality check to you, to where if you think you need help and it sounds great, it sounds fine, it sounds dandy, it sounds like something that you always needed, there is a lot of serious things that you need to consider before you just go out and hire someone to help you out. Because when you decide to hire someone to help you, it is going to be expensive, and you have to realize the commitment that stands behind it. Because hear me out, if you hire someone to help you out, you now have someone relying on you for a paycheck. You don't want to just haphazardly hire someone, only have them for 2 weeks, put in the time to train them and get them used to listing for you, if you are just going to, in a month, realize, oh, I bit off more than I can chew. I can't afford somebody right now. I need to let them go. That's not fair to the person that you hired, and it's not fair to your business, because realistically, you're going to end up wasting a lot of your time. Because if you have to take the time to train someone and create a guideline of the things that they need to do to help you out just to let someone go in 2 or 3 months, that wasted your money and it wasted your time. So if you want to hire someone, you need to be committed to hiring someone to help you out, both emotionally and financially, because not only are you going to need to rely on them to help you, but they are going to be relying on you for a paycheck. So let's talk about the first part of how expensive it is. So I have effectively hired 3 people so far since I started running my eBay business business full time. I've had 3 separate people help me out. I've hired 3 separate people. Well, technically 4, but I'll get into that in a little bit. So 3 full times now, I have had to not only take my time to train people, but I have had to sacrifice profits in the short term for gains in the long term. Because when you hire somebody, you have to pay them before the merchandise sells. That means that the first thing you need to do before you go off and hire someone is you need to have a nice sum of money sitting, laying in wait, so that you can pay them for working for you before the item actually sells. So if you're barely able to hold any money back from your business right now, it is not the time to hire someone. You need to reach the point where you have a nice amount of cash flow every single week. You always have a certain dollar amount in your business bank account that you're able to rely on regularly. Only then should you even be considering hiring somebody to help you. And now I know a question that you're probably thinking is, can you hire someone to help you if you don't have a legitimate business? And when I say a legitimate business, I mean you're not an S Corp or a C Corp. You might not even be an LLC. Let's just say you are a sole proprietor. Are you able to hire someone to help you? Yes, you absolutely can. Here's the caveat to that though. They would have to be a contractor where they receive a 1099 from you or your CPA versus being a salaried employee. Now, if you were hiring someone to come in and work specific days at specific hours that you determined, then that would technically be an employee and you would need to be cutting them a payroll check and you would need to have, an S Corp or a C Corp in order to do that. However, if someone is a 1099 contractor, that basically means that they are working for you on their time. And you do not need to have a business license. You don't need to be an LLC, S Corp, C Corp. You don't need to cut them a payroll check as long as they are their own contractor. Now, you might have heard 1099 contractor before. That is very similar to someone like an Uber driver or someone who does DoorDash. They basically dictate their time to the bigger company that they are working for. How I personally choose to handle it, I have my helpers fill out a W-9 and I just give it to my CPA and my CPA prepares a 1099 for them every tax season. And then of course, I'm able to deduct anything that I pay them from my earned income because they are a business expense. I pay them as a business expense and they receive a 1099 for whatever I paid them. So now, of course, if you want to hire someone to help you, you ultimately have to be the one to determine what exactly they are going to be doing for you and how exactly you want to utilize that help. I'm gonna give you 3 examples of jobs that I have had people help me out with because that is what worked best for me and my business at the time. The first way that I hired someone was to just do eBay drafts for me. They did not take pictures. They did not send listings live. They basically just got the drafts started. Can you guys tell? I like to properly enunciate my words. Drafts started. Now we can continue. I just paid someone to get my draft started for me. Forget it. And just basically fill the listing with all of the simplest of stuff that was just taking up a lot of time. That was things like item specifics and getting the title going, filling out, the body of the description, all of the really, honestly, mind-numbing parts of creating a listing. This is actually the #1 job that I hear of people having VAs do, VAs, virtual assistants, because if they're not taking the pictures and they aren't sending the listing live, they don't need to have the physical item with them. So a lot of people will use virtual assistants to create the drafts and put all of these mundane, very boring specifics into the listing so that you can send the listing live and already have all of that, boring stuff included in there already. I have never personally used a VA. I've heard a lot of people have used VAs. I personally don't see the point in having a VA because you have to do almost all of the work for them to just enter in 15 seconds worth of data. I'd rather just do it myself or pay someone here to do it for me. I never really saw the point of having a VA. If you use a VA, please go down in the comments and give us some information about like where you hired your VA, if you're enjoying using a VA, because I know that there are a lot of resellers out there that are very intrigued with the idea of hiring a VA, because a lot of the times it can save you some money using someone virtually versus someone in person. So if you use a VA or if you're interested in a VA, go down to the comment section and kind of chat over there, because I don't have any experience with VAs. I personally don't see the point in them, but a lot of people do. So that is basically the first kind of help that I had. I had someone just help me with drafts. They did physically have the item with them though, because at this time it was clothing. So I did have them take the clothing items to their house. That way they could do measurements in the listing and get the drafts going. But then what would end up happening was they would get all of the drafts completed. I would get the merchandise back, and then I would basically go through, take all of the pictures myself. I would upload them into the listings. I would make sure that the price was what I wanted it to be at, and then I would send the listing live. And for this kind of help, I chose to do per draft, and I was paying 75 cents per draft. So that meant for every 100 drafts that my helper did, I paid them $75. And $75 for every 100 drafts really helped me out at the time, because they were basically shortening my listing time from about 8 minutes a listing to more like 4 minutes a listing, which right there helped me basically double the amount of listings that I was able to get up every single week, which meant that the profit increase more than paid for the help creating those drafts. But then before too long, I started realizing that I wanted a little bit more help. I was over taking pictures again. Remember I was talking to you about burnout? I was really feeling the burnout. I'm like, I can't be the only one taking pictures. And so that leads me to the second form of help. You can hire someone to just take pictures for you, or you can hire someone to do the drafts and take the pictures, which is what I chose to do. I do know some people that hire people to just take pictures. That's all they do. They just pay someone to take photos. I kind of did for a very small amount of time. I'm talking like 2 weeks. I had a friend of mine offer to take pictures for me, and I paid her 50 cents per item for taking photos. That only lasted like 2 weeks because it just wasn't working out. But I'm not gonna go into detail about that, but 50 cents per item. They did it for like 2 weeks. It just didn't work out. But I do know of people that will pay someone just to take photographs. But what I ended up doing was this same person that I was paying 75 cents per draft, I basically increased to $1.25 per draft. And they basically did all of the photos and all of the drafts completely. So all I had to do was open up the draft, make sure that the photos looked good, make sure that the price was what I wanted it to be, make sure that there was no errors, and that I could send the listing live. So by paying my helper $1.25 to take the photos and do the drafts, I was basically able to send the listings live in under 60 seconds, which again made like triple the amount of listings that I was able to do before, because I was having her do listings and then I was still doing listings myself. So she was doing drafts and photos of, you know, say 100 or 200 a week, and I was still doing the 100 that I was doing, but then I was just needing to add an extra minute to finalize her drafts as well. So I was able to get up basically triple what I was able to do before, because I was doing my same listings and then I was having her do 100 or 200. So that increased the amount of listings I was able to get up exponentially, which meant that the amount that I was paying for her, which was an additional 50 cents per item, additional $50 per week, so $125 for every 100 items that she drafted for me with the photos. That more than made up for it, because I was able to triple the amount of listings getting up every single week. So as I previously mentioned though, that only lasted about 1.5 years, because she needed to scale back with me because she had more responsibilities at her 9-to-5 job, which meant I was back to doing it by myself again, which meant that I was done with clothing. I decided to switch to HBA, and the rest is history. So now that brings me to the third way of having someone help you create eBay listings listings. And that is currently what I have going on right now. I do have somebody who's my sister-in-law. You guys have probably heard me refer to her before. I have my sister-in-law helping me do eBay listings, and she does not do just drafts. She does not do just pictures. She actually sends entire listings live for me. Now, this is where the salary gets a little muddy because I actually have her list from my house because I want her to complete the listing and be able to put it away in the event that it sells. I don't want to risk an item selling when I don't have possession of it. So she does list in my storage area, and so I do pay her by the hour. And of course, how much I pay her is based on, you know, a typical wage of where I live, which is what I would suggest to you. If you are paying somebody by the hour, pay them relative to the area in which you live. Some places have a higher minimum wage. Some places pay significantly less because maybe it's a lower cost of living. But right now I do pay my sister-in-law hourly because she does work here and I'm able to clock her when she is here. Now, she does dictate when she does work. I do tell her that, you know, a suggested day and time, and she basically tells me, well, I would like to work these hours on these days. And I'm like, I'm cool with that. Just, you know, I'll leave the door open. She just comes in and she goes straight downstairs and gets to work. That's exactly, you know, how the whole thing operates. She comes and goes as she pleases and just clocks her hours. But if she was taking the merchandise to her own house and I was not able to clock her, I would be paying her by the item, which I would probably pay her $2 to $2.50 per listing that she completes in its entirety. That means she does the entire listing, start to finish, including the photographs, sends the listing live. I don't need to worry about it. I would probably start at $2 per listing and then maybe go up to $2.50 per listing if she does not have any errors. Now let's talk about errors. Because if you hire someone to help you, that is something that you need to be ready for. It's something that I personally experienced when hiring help for the first couple of times. And it's something that I feel like I need to give you fair warning about because, firstly, nobody is going to love and respect your business like you are going to love and respect your business. A lot of the times, if you hire someone to help you out, they are not going to be as committed to making sure that there are no issues before the listings are live. You need to be prepared to either check work or you need to be prepared for there to be a mess up. I think my sister-in-law is doing a phenomenal job. I love everything that she is doing, but there has been a couple of mistakes so far. There's been a couple of pricing errors, and there has been a couple of times where the quantities were wrong and I accidentally oversold because she entered in the wrong quantity, and mistakes happen, and that's something that you have to be ready for if you're going to hire someone to help. So not only are you going to need to pay out money before the item sells to have that person help you out, but you have to be ready for there to be mistakes. You have to be ready for there to be errors in the listing. You have to be ready for quantities to be incorrect. You have to be ready for prices to be wrong. You have to be ready to check over every little thing because even someone doing their very, very best, they don't have your eyes. They don't have your experience. You're able to train them to the best of your ability to do the things that you need them to do. But when it comes down to it, you are the only one with your experience. You are the only one that knows exactly what you want out of these listings. They are just doing their best, and their best is not going to be your best, and you need to be ready to handle that. That means that you're going to need to be able to sacrifice some exceptional customer service in the event that there's a mistake. You're going to need to be willing to take the defects if you need to cancel orders. You need to be ready to put in the time to not only train them, but to go back and micromanage essentially and look over all of their work and make sure that they didn't screw up anywhere. You have to be ready to accept more returns. You have to be ready to relinquish some control. And that was the hardest part for me because this business is my baby, right? I grew this business from nothing. And that's one of the things I'm always telling you guys is I am just so motivated and so happy because this is something that I built. This is a business that I built to create an income for myself where an income didn't exist before. This is my baby. I'm very passionate about it. And the idea of turning over the reins to someone and giving someone else the keys to my car to potentially drive it off a cliff is terrifying to me. But it did get to the point where I realized I can't do this by myself anymore. I can't. It's too much. I have to figure something out. It's okay to need help. If you get to that point, it's okay to need help. Now, let me tell you how exactly to find this help. And again, I'm sure there's lots of different ways that you are able to find someone to help you out. This is just how I chose to go about the whole hiring process. Now, I'm gonna have to talk about the initial way that I hired someone because the last 2 times kind of don't count. The second person that I ended up hiring turned out to be someone that I met at one of my epic yard sales. Come to find out, she was a follower of mine. She already knew how to list on eBay. We became really, really fast friends. Autumn, I miss you. I know she would still be working with me right now if I hadn't moved away, but it was like a match made in heaven. She already knew how to list. She already knew how to do comps. She just jumped in to help me out and it was epic. And then of course the third time, which is currently, it's my sister-in-law. So I didn't have to go out and find her. She was just already here. I just already knew that she had an interest in it. It's my sister-in-law, so she's married to my brother. My brother grew up in the same household I did. Her dad loves eBay. He knew that eBay was a thing. He liked to list on eBay and she would occasionally help him out. But of course, he's a real estate agent now. He doesn't really sell on eBay much anymore, but she took a real liking to it and she had a bunch of downtime because they don't have children yet. And so it ended up coming up over Thanksgiving that she was willing to help me out if I needed it. And so I'm like, heck yeah, I could use some help. And the rest is history. And I feel incredibly fortunate and blessed to have her because not only is it a family member that I can trust, but she does a phenomenal job. I'm over here like, for real? How is this working out so well? She does such a good job. I am so incredibly blessed to have her. It's like all of the pieces are just falling into place. But let me tell you how I hired the first person that was a complete stranger. Well, technically, the first person I hired was the second person because the very, very, very first person that I hired was kind of a disaster. It was a bad error in judgment all the way around for me. I did an entire video talking all about that whole disaster that was just, it was bad. I hired the wrong person. So let me tell you how I hired the right person who was my first official helper that I kept on for, you know, that first initial year and a half when I was selling clothing. So I ended up putting a listing on Facebook Marketplace. Now, I know that times have changed. I have seen it because I was going to have to hire someone here when I lost Autumn, when I moved. Again, I miss you so much, Autumn. And so I went on Facebook Marketplace and I looked and there was a lot of groups surrounding the idea of hiring people, like help wanted or people looking for jobs. So on Facebook Marketplace right now, there's a lot of opportunity. But what I did years ago was I basically posted an ad that I was looking for help for data entry. That is how I marketed it at the time. I don't know if now you could say eBay data entry and someone would be able to know and understand exactly what you were looking for. But you know, back in 2016, I think it was when I initially put this ad out, I basically just told whoever that was looking was that I needed data entry. And I asked them very specifically to not comment on the post, but to simply email me a resume. And I did this very strategically because I wanted to see what people out there could follow basic instruction, because I knew that anyone that I hired needed to be able to follow a basic instruction, like do not comment on this post, email me a resume. So anyone who just emailed me saying, I'm interested, or commented on the post saying, I'm interested, I basically ignored. I only acknowledged the people that followed the basic instruction of emailing me their resume. Those were the only people that I chose to contact. So then from there, I went through all of the resumes and I looked for people that had, you know, something on their resume relating to what exactly I needed, you know, some sort of data entry, a high word per minute typing skill, all of that. Oh, I also said in the listing that the hours were flexible and that they could work from home. So I basically said data entry, you can work from home, flexible hours was basically what I said. And so then after I narrowed down the resumes that I received, that's when I started calling people to tell them exactly what the job was. I explained what I needed them to do, which, you know, I needed them to take products, they could take it to their house, and I needed them to create eBay drafts for me. And then from there, if they were still interested, I set up a time to meet them at Starbucks, and we sat down and we did a basic interview. And from there, I just kind of picked the person that I liked the best. So the very, very first person that I picked, again, I did an entire video talking about it, so I'm not going to go into a bunch of detail. I picked very, very poorly. I selected them because they were too available. And too available to me means too good to be true. He had been in the military, so he said. He was looking for work and he was available and very, very eager to work. Like, he told me that he would just do as many listings as I need, that I could give him as much stuff as I wanted to, and that he was always available. And not only that, but he lived very, very close to me, which was also something that I was looking for. I was looking for someone that lived relatively close to me because I was going to need to drop off and pick up merchandise from them for the listing creation. And he lived like right around the corner from me. So that was super duper convenient, right? Well, it ended up not working out very well. He was way too casual about the entire thing. He answered the door not wearing a shirt. His house reeked like cigarette smoke. So that was just not gonna fly. But the second person that I hired that ended up being the person that stuck with me for a year and a half, she was very, very smart. She was funny. She worked for K-State University in the, I think she was in the academics department. I think she was a clerk in the academics department. And she was really, really nice. I had to bring Benjamin with me to my interview, and she was really sweet with him. I really liked her a lot. We just kind of clicked, and it proved to be, you know, a really good choice for me because she did a good job. She worked for me for a year and a half until she couldn't do it anymore because of obligations at her, you know, full-time job. And so I would say if you're looking to hire someone, do that interview in a public place and really listen to your gut. You know, I liked the first guy a lot because he was so available and he was so eager to work. But then when push came to shove, he was just too chill about everything, and his house ended up smelling like cigarette smoke. That was something that I should have asked because I was selling clothing. I should have asked in the interview, do you smoke? So there's a tip for you. If you're selling clothing or you're worried about your items smelling because they're going to be at someone else's house, ask them if they smoke. If they're smokers, even if they claim that they only smoke outside, that is a no-go. No-go. Because when I walked into the house and I smelled cigarette smoke, he said that they only smoke outside. I called BS on that real quick. Now, the last thing that I want to leave you with before I wrap up this video is the idea of possibly working out a deal with somebody if you desperately need the help, but you don't have the finances to pay someone outright. You know, if you're really struggling with the cash flow, if you desperately need help, and you don't have the money, here's something that you can do. If you have a friend or a family member who also wants to make a little bit of extra money, try to work something out with them so that you can split the profits. Now, this can be really tricky to negotiate though, because if you're trying to bring someone in that's not already a reseller, they're not going to fully understand what splitting profits means. They're gonna think if something sells for $20 that they're gonna get $10 of that, and that's not how it works. You have have to be able to communicate with them that the profit is what it sells for minus the shipping, minus the fees, minus the cost of goods, minus the other shipping expenses, which means that out of a $20 sale, they might only get $2 or $3 in profit from it. But if you have a friend or a family member who you can get to grasp that idea, it is very possible that you could work as a team with somebody and you can get help with your reselling business and just sacrifice splitting the profits after it sells. That is definitely something that can happen, and it's something that I would encourage you to do if you do feel like you really, really need that help and you just don't have the finances to support hiring somebody and paying them a paycheck before it sells. Consider the idea of hiring a friend or a family member that is willing to wait for the item to sell and just split the profits. But make sure that you talk about in detail exactly what splitting the profits means. Create some form of a plan where you guys sit down together once a month, you go over all of the expenses, all of the income, and then that's when you split it, because only then is it going to go well, because something like that can definitely end badly if you don't lay out the ground rules really early on. All right, you guys, that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video and videos like it, please do hit the thumbs up button. I really do appreciate it. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already and ring the notification bell. That way you're notified whenever I post a new video. Don't forget to check the video description. I will put a lot of useful information in there, as well as any videos that I referenced. Also, the coupon code for Wholesale Ninjas. Again, thank you Wholesale Ninjas for sponsoring today's video. Leave any questions or comments down in the comments below. And thank you guys again so much for watching. I will see you guys with my next video. Bye-bye.